Greetings all, and welcome to Lucas Brews. For this month's Forgotten Friday, we're going to be having a look at another Korean War era Mustang in the form of Italeri's F-51D Mustang. So join me as we take a close look at this 1990s kit that's been reissued several times to see if it's still a worthy purchase in 2026. So, having a look at the box, we have a very nice looking picture of a very battered up P-51 or F-51 Mustang doing a rocket attack with a massive explosion in the background. And yeah, it's absolutely covered in stains, leaks, and looks pretty grotty. The right corner has a little Korean War sort of graphic there, which Italeri regularly use on some of their kits from the Korean War era. And down the bottom, we've got their typical marketed super decal sheet with 6 versions included. So we've got 3 American ones, a South Korean, a RAAF or Australian, and a South African by the looks of things. And it mentions no figure is included. On this side, we've got a Boeing officially licensed sticker, the usual Italeri titles and logo, and typically in Australia we have the Australian Decals included sticker put on it, which I think is either done by the distributors or Italeri themselves to sort of say, hey, there's markings for your country included. So that's something you regularly see on model kits in Australia. The bottom features a bit of history about the Mustang in various languages, sort of just an extract, and it mentions there's more details inside. The sides of the box have a repeat of the box art, along with the price tag I paid, which I'll talk about towards the end. The top features a profile of the aircraft on the front here, which I think is no hero here, and that's a US Air Force Mustang, with a little picture of the decals there to give you an idea on what else is included. And on the very back, we've got all of the 6 markings more detailed here, with not only the profiles for them, but also a bit of details about the units, their names, and that sort of thing. So I think it's really great that Italeri have that on the box there, that you can see exactly what markings you've got without having to open things up or do research. And we've got various other warnings and cautions, a recommended age of 14 plus, which is probably a bit old, I'd say, compared to other ages that companies put on these. And we've just got usual barcodes and that sort of thing as well. So opening the box from the side, we then have our plastic sprues here, the instructions, and we've also got this sheet of paper, and somewhere there should be, here we go, the decals. The instructions are pretty typical for Italeri at this time. They're done in black and white for the most part, but with colour for the colour guides, which is great. And on the front, there's just a bit of detailed history about the aircraft. Opening up the page, we have a sprue map, so you can easily find where all the parts are, even after you've cut a fair few of them out. We've got a little key, which is to drill holes out, but otherwise nothing else mentioned, so should be reasonably simple assembly. We've got suggested colours here, which are done with Italeri's own acrylic colour codes there, but fortunately most of them are pretty standard ones which you can convert if you're not using them. And otherwise there's just a name for the individual colours. And assembly, as is typical for an aircraft like this, starts with the cockpit. So we've got a floor piece here with some parts to make up the seat, a control column, and the instrument panel, and we've got the colours marked with just little sort of circles and a little bit of shading, but it's not super obvious which colours are which. Once the cockpit's assembled, you can add this little piece here where the radiator system would be, along with the tail wheel and a gun sight. And after you've painted the sidewalls of the aircraft and some of the interior parts here, you can then add the cockpit and join the fuselage halves. For step 2, we've then got the wings, so there's 2 upper halves and a single lower half. And since we appear to have quite a few payload options, there also may be a bit of drilling for attaching them required. Then turning over the page, you can join the fuselage and wings together and add some of the other details, such as these antennas, horizontal stabilizers, engine exhausts, and you've also got the barrel separate for the machine guns in the wings. Step 4 consists of assembling the main landing gear strut, wheel, and door, along with our various payload options. So we've got 2 different drop tanks there, the rockets, which there are 3 of them, and we've got 2 bombs, I guess either 250 or probably 500 pound bombs. Leaving those aside for now, you can add the landing gear in the lowered position. There's no indication of whether or not you can have them in the raised position, but obviously you could just glue those landing gear doors shut and that would be that. Also got inner doors for the landing gear bay, along with the intake for the scoop under the wing, and 2 separate doors for the tail wheel, and then other accessories like the pitot tube and a single landing light on the right side of the wheels. After that, you've then got the propeller assembly, which consists of the 4 blades as one piece getting added to a base piece, and then there's a spinner on the front. There's also this little sort of locking nut piece which goes on the back of that circular cylinder coming out of the propeller blade, And by the looks of things, you basically fit that up to the nose, and then this lower piece with the intake locks it into place. We've got two options for canopies, either a slightly more flat or the slightly more curved one, and I'm not sure exactly which one's which, so a Mustang expert may have to tell me which, but I know one of them is from, I think, Dallas, or specifically made in factories in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then you've got just the single piece at the front there with quite a lot of the fuselage sort of attached to it. And on the last page of assembly, we've then got all of the various payload options. So you've got different drop tanks, bombs, and the rockets. So nice that you've got a little bit of variety in terms of payload there if you want to load your Mustang up. And on the other side of the page here, we've got the first of our 6 markings, and this is a F-51D Mustang from the US Air Force, the 8th Fighter Bomb Group, based in, and excuse my pronunciation, Wonjao Air Base, South Korea in 1950. And it's done in a usual silver with some black trim for anti-glare purposes, and then some blue and white markings on the nose, spinner, and wings and tail. And it's also got the option for drop tanks or napalm if you paint them yellow, so that's an interesting feature there. I really love that it's all done in color. They've even attempted to sort of do some of the silver variations. Not 100% sure if that's accurate. I think the Mustangs had some slightly different placements of their tones, like I think the wings and flaps were slightly different silvers, but they have had a go there, and if you wanted to, you could obviously do more research. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Decal placement is pretty clear with all of the numbers there, and you could just go ahead and cross them off one by one, and it's pretty easy to see them. The next Mustang we've got is another American one, and it's got some nice red trim and the rainbow stripes, and it's from the 67th Fighter Bomb Group in Chinhae in 1952. And it's got the inscription, I think, Old Horse Nose there, with a nice little bit of nose art and some very striking markings there. The third Mustang is from the 18th Fighter Bomb Group based in Busan in 1951, and it's got a very striking set of teeth on the front, but otherwise very similar blue markings to the 8th Fighter Bomb Group one. Turning over the page, we've then got a South Korean aircraft, which is nice to see, and it's got the olive drab anti-glare trim with some yellow markings on the spinner and the fuselage there. Otherwise, pretty similar with just being a silver Mustang, but it's pretty cool that they've included a South Korean marking. And even more interesting, we've got a South African Air Force one as well from Suwon Air Force Base in 1950 and part of the 2nd Squadron. So it's nice to see some representation of the various forces that were in South Korea at the time, and it looks pretty cool with the red spinner there. And finally, we've got another Allied aircraft, and this is from the RAAF from 77th Squadron in 1950. So yeah, really great representation there. Got a lot of nice choices. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge for me to pick just one, and there's probably a good chance I'll actually end up using multiple of these schemes included, but on the other Mustangs I'm looking at. Taking a look at the plastic parts, they are all contained within one sealed bag, but there is a separate bag for all of the clear parts, which is great, as it obviously protects them from being scratched. So, starting off with this sprue, if you've seen my build of the P-51A Mustangs I did, also from Italeri, it's going to look quite familiar, as I believe they share this exact same sprue. Not sure if that's accurate, because I think the A models had slightly different wings, but oh well. These look pretty accurate for a D model Mustang in terms of general detail. We've got nice recessed panel lines and a few little access hatches and some finer details, but in general it's reasonably sparse. They're reasonably crisp. There's a few that are slightly fainter and lost, but still not too bad. And they have done some raised bumps for the formation and nav lights on the wings there, along with some detail for the inside of the landing gear bay with raised rivets and raised rib lines. They've slightly exaggerated the edges between the flaps and the ailerons there, which doesn't look terrible, but it's probably a little bit strange. And there's a little bit of flash where the machine gun barrels will get installed, but otherwise not too bad. You can see we've got these little holes here to drill out for the 50 cals as well as the drop tanks and rockets there. So if you want your ejection chutes for the shell cases, you'll want to do that. Then to the right here, we've got our cockpit floor with the rudder pedals and some of the radio equipment molded to them. Not too badly done, with some sort of recessed and raised details here and there, which looks good. We've got our horizontal stabilizers here with a bit of fabric texturing represented on the elevators, and a few little recessed access hatches and panel lines on the rest of them. Just next to those, we've got various other smaller details, including our wheels, which look a little bit strange to me for a Mustang. They look a little bit generic there, so I might have to replace those when I build this one. The main wheel struts look pretty decent with some hinges and the little shock absorbers there molded quite nicely. Our tail wheel looks pretty good with a fair bit of nice crisp framework. We've got our control column there with some little details even for the firing buttons and some sort of cover at the base there, which looks pretty good. A few other finer details like our landing light for inside of the wheel well, some antennas and pitot tubes, some landing gear bay covers for the tail wheel with a little bit of raised detailing on the inner surface there. We've got our attachment points for drop tanks or rockets, our intake scoop for the underside of the wing, which is pretty nicely done there. Our seat with some seatbelt details molded to it, which doesn't look too bad in my opinion, along with a rather finely detailed instrument panel there. So you can probably get away with dry brushing and painting that, and that's probably a good thing because I don't think decals are included for it. We've then got the rear sort of bulkhead with the headrest for the pilot's seat, which doesn't look too bad at all. And just next to that, we've got our main landing gear bay doors here with no detail really on the exterior. They're quite smooth. But on the inside, we've got some very nice raised framework and texturing, especially on the inner surface here, although there is some rather nasty ejector pin marks which you're going to want to clean up. So it's nice that they're done separately, and obviously you could have them closed if you wished. The next sprue here contains our two fuselage halves, which have some very nicely done recessed detailing with access hatches and grab points and all sorts of little details, which look pretty good. There is, I think, a little bit of a grill or something on this part in reality, but it's just a recessed panel, so you might want to detail that up a little bit more. But in general, it's pretty nicely done and good and simple. The fabric detailing on the rudder surface is pretty nice as well. And in terms of interior sidewall detail, there isn't really any. But on the right fuselage side here, we do have some pegs to help line things up. The rest of the sprue contains our various weapons and some other details. So we've got our exhausts here, which are nicely done. There isn't any drilled out holes there, but they have done a bit of a raised rim on the outside, which looks pretty decent. And they're reasonably cleanly molded. We've got our machine gun barrels there, which are a little bit basic and probably a tiny bit overscale, but still not too bad given the age. We've then got our little locking cap for the propeller, along with the spinner, which has a fairly large amount of flash on it and is going to need a bit of a cleanup. We've got the lower piece of the front cowling there with the intake for, I think, the radiator for the oil cooling, and it's got the lower part that helps lock the propeller into place. We've then got our rockets, which are pretty nicely done with the railing separate. Our larger drop tanks, I think these may have been the paper mache ones from World War II, but I could be mistaken. They might be a larger metal one. But the more famous drop tank is, of course, these ones, and I think they are also your napalm ones if you are doing one with that equipped. We've got our bombs here, which have some nice little bits of detail here and there on them, and not too bad. And finally, we've then got the bulkhead here for the radiator on the underside of the aircraft. It doesn't really have any detail on it, so it's probably more just to block out any light from coming through and making it obvious that there's nothing inside of the aircraft. And then we've got our propeller blades with a few little bits of flash, but in general, not too bad. Lastly, we have our clear parts in here, which include our two different options for canopies, as well as the front windshield and a nice little gun sight. So yeah, in general, the clear parts aren't as good as some other kits I've seen. It's a bit of a challenge with the Mustang because obviously it's such a curved canopy, so there's a lot of distortion, and the plastic on this older kit is a little bit thick. Fortunately though, there doesn't appear to be any scratches or imperfections, and in general the detailing's not too bad with the framework. So what I'd say I'll most likely do is use these to vacuform replacements. And last but definitely not least, we have our decals, which I would say are probably the strongest selling point in this kit. They aren't done by Cartograph like some newer Italeri kits I've seen are, but generally I don't have any issues with Italeri's decals. They have quite a glossy surface to them, and there are a few spots where they're a little bit patchy, but in general the quality still looks pretty good. The colour on them is very vibrant and looks pretty accurate in my opinion, And in general, the finer ones as well are quite nicely done. You can read most of that smaller text, which is pretty good, even the fuel caps and everything. So some pretty excellent decals there, and it's going to be a big challenge to choose just one of these schemes or even two of them. So that wraps up my look at the Italeri F-51D Mustang with Korean War markings. So in general, I'd have to say it's a reasonably okay looking kit. Probably one more for beginners rather than anyone who's got more experience and wants to get a more detailed Mustang, given how much is simplified and even missing. There's not really any advantage I see to getting this kit over any others apart from the decals. And in my opinion, Italeri are asking a little bit much in terms of pricing. This one is still around, although it is becoming a little bit more scarce given that it's from 2019, but it generally retails brand new for about 30 AUD, and Italeri have reissued the Mustang yet again, and I've seen some places asking as high as 35 AUD, which I think is pretty ridiculous when you've got much better Mustangs like Eduards out for lower prices. As mentioned, I've already built the A model Mustang, which is pretty similar with a lot of parts being shared for better or worse. And it was an okay build, definitely not the most detailed kit I'll be doing, but I thought it'd be a good chance to not only take some of these markings, but also practice silver on a more basic kit, since I haven't done any with the airbrush to date. So in general, not one I'd recommend considering how many better options there are on the market for less money and with more detail, but it's one that fits what I was after, and I'm looking forward to still doing a video where I test out some aluminium on this basic but alright kit. Thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out next time I do a video. And feel free to leave any thoughts and opinions you have on this kit and also other ones that you want to see me do in the comments below. A massive thank you to my wonderful patrons for helping me to fund not only buying these kits, but also the products I use when I make them and the time I spend making these videos. Keep your eyes out, as I'm probably going to do a poll at some point on YouTube deciding which of these schemes I'm going to do, and I'm possibly going to do a second one on the Tamiya F-51D, since I don't really like Tamiya decals. Originally I was hoping to have the Airfix Banshee ready for this month's Forgotten Friday, but oh well, it's definitely going to be ready for next month. And all going well, later in this week I'll also have part 3 of my Hobby Boss Grumman Avenger build, where I'll be covering weathering. Otherwise though, that's it for now, but until the next video, as always, take care and model on.